Third, we don't know all of his business dealings, but we have been told through investigative reporting that he owes about $650 million to Wall Street and foreign banks. Or maybe he doesn't want the American people, all of you watching tonight, to know that he's paid nothing in federal taxes, because the only years that anybody's ever seen were a couple of years when he had to turn them over to state authorities when he was trying to get a casino license, and they showed he didn't pay any federal income tax. So if he's paid zero.
Hello everyone, welcome to Block and Key. Today's July 29th, 2019. Today I want to talk about paying taxes, if it's lawful and what you should do, and how you can use Bitcoin to avoid paying taxes because taxation is theft. As you've seen in that previous clip by, at the time, candidate Donald Trump, not paying taxes is smart. And I have some more, we're going to go through this a little bit, and the IRS is also sending out letters to crypto traders that they needed to pay their taxes and they need to be careful, or fines and prison terms could result if non-compliance. So stay tuned, we'll be right back just after this. Block and Key. So in this article that was released just a couple of days ago, I believe this was from Cointelegraph, so it looks like Friday, July 26th, and it says here that the IRS is sending 10,000 tax compliance letters to crypto investors. And I'm not going to go through the whole article, but in the intro to this video, you've seen how Donald Trump, who's now president of the United States, declaring that it's smart not to pay taxes, and you should think and feel the same way. But this article says the IRS states that it has sent letters to 10,000 crypto investors, asking some to amend their tax filings while compelling others to pay back taxes and or interest and penalties. The Revenue Service states that the letter should be delivered by the end of August. The crypto traders in the US, if you're a US citizen, you have about a month to step in line and pay your taxes to the government. And so I want to touch upon one of my previous videos. I said that next month, which is now July, that I want to talk about the tax-free tour and how the rich don't pay taxes. Again, if you're new to this channel, you're new to this concept, the system that we currently live in is designed by the rich for the rich. And that's why I feel that Bitcoin will be used by the rich. So as a lot of people are fearful of these regulations and they're going to clamp down and they're going to do this, I would take the contrarian view. A lot of these politicians, corrupt business people, and just even normal people are going to be purchasing Bitcoin and holding it en masse to store their wealth and their value. It's a permissionless money that can be taken across borders that's uncensorable. So it's a very powerful tool. And I'm going to play another video clip here from Donald Trump, how tax loopholes are used and how he uses them. And it's well known for the people at the top. While at the meantime, the IRS and the other government, you should pay your taxes because you're just a low-level pleb. The middle class and the poor pay the brunt of most of the taxes. The rich pay almost nothing because a lot of times it's not about how much money you make per year, it's how much you keep.
Use that $916 million loss to avoid paying personal federal income taxes.
Of course I do. Of course I do. And so do all of her donors, or most of her donors. I know many of her donors. Her donors took massive tax write-offs.
So have you not paid personal federal income tax?
A lot of my write-off was depreciation and other things that Hillary, as a senator, allowed. And she'll always allow it because the people that give her all this money, they want it. That's why. See, I understand the tax code better than anybody that's ever run for president. Hillary Clinton, and it's extremely complex, Hillary Clinton has friends that want all of these provisions, including they want the carried interest provision, which is very important to Wall Street people, but they really want the carried interest provision, which I believe Hillary's leaving. It's very interesting why she's leaving carried interest. But I will tell you that, number one, I pay tremendous numbers of taxes. I absolutely used it, and so did Warren Buffett, and so did George Soros, and so did many of the other people that Hillary is getting money from. Now,
so you heard from Donald Trump himself when he was a candidate running for the presidency of the United States, openly admit that of course he used tax loopholes. Of course he was. Probably still is. Well, I think he had to give it to his son or something to manage, but all the rich know this game. I can't stress this enough. This system is designed by the rich for the rich. Paying taxes is theft, like especially on your labor is theft. So I don't have a lot of time to go in. I could spend days, probably weeks, going into offshore banking, shadow banking, all these things. But I just want to give you kind of a preliminary on the background of how the system works and why, if you do get into business, you need to start internationalizing your assets. Create a business that's offshore and use the same tools that the rich do to maintain your wealth. Paying taxes will make you poor in the long run. You just will. It's not about how much money you make. It's about how much you keep. So this is from Wikipedia. An offshore financial center, or OFC, is defined as a country or jurisdiction that provides financial services to non-residents on a scale that is incommensurate with the size and the financing of its domestic economy. It also provides a core definition here. Cities, areas, or countries which have made a conscious effort to attract offshore banking business, as an example, non-resident foreign currency denominated business, by allowing relatively free entry and by adopting a flexible attitude where taxes, levies, and regulation are concerned. So they're not going to shut this down anytime soon. And again, if you're fearful that Bitcoin is going to be heavily regulated and it's going to be made illegal to US citizens or Canadian citizens, make no mistake. The rich love having their tax loopholes and they love having their OFCs and their shadow banking systems intact. They will be using Bitcoin. So follow the rich. It's really quite simple. This also has some lists. There's an IMF list in here. Yeah, so this is the IMF 2018 list. It says the following 8 OFCs, also called pass-through economies, were co-identified by an IMF working paper. So there's Bermuda, British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, Hong Kong, Ireland, Luxembourg, Netherlands, and Singapore. And then the FSF 2018 Shadow Bank OFC list. Shadow banking is a key service line for OFCs. So you have to remember that. Shadow banking is a key service line for OFCs. Top 4 are Cayman Islands, Luxembourg, Ireland, and the Netherlands. The Netherlands and Luxembourg and Ireland are quite popular. So let's give you another brief example of the shadow banking system. A shadow banking system is a term for the collection of non-bank financial intermediaries that provide services similar to traditional commercial banks, but outside normal banking regulations. There, it's right there. So Donald Trump uses it. Apple, Google, Facebook, Amazon, all your big corporations know this system. The system is designed by them for them. So don't fear too much crypto regulation and the Bitcoin price is going to go to zero. It's not going to happen. These people are probably already loading up on it and they plan to use it. They understand taxes will make them poor. And who wants to pay all kinds of taxes? Another example of, it's not really offshore, but it's quite similar, and it's meant for the super rich to become residents so they pay no income tax. Now this article is a little bit dated, I must admit. It's from last year, 2018. And I discussed in one of my other videos about the state of Monaco. Now Monaco is basically its own country, sub-sovereign state, but it's basically just a big city, and it's meant just for the rich so they can become residents and pay no tax. And this is from Sputnik. Around 2,000 millionaires, many of them billionaires, call Monte Carlo, which is the city in Monaco, their home and avoid paying billions of euros in tax. I'm not going to go through the whole article again. I'll have most of these in the description of the video below. But it says right here, this is one of the people they interviewed. Oxfam said most of the bankers in Monaco, so most of the bankers in Monaco, so think of your local bank where you go in and, you know, discuss your finances, your 401k plans and these sorts of things. Most of the bankers in Monaco, for the rich, were involved in wealth management. In other words, advising the millionaires and billionaires who live there on how to invest their money and how to avoid paying taxes. So, yeah, that's quite remarkable. And just a small place. So if you go to Wikipedia, this will give you an idea of why these havens around the world are set up for the rich, by the rich. So Monaco is a sovereign city-state, country, and microstate on the French Riviera in Western Europe. France borders the country on 3 sides, while the other side borders the Mediterranean Sea. Monaco has an area of 2 square kilometers. So just let that sink in for a minute, or 0.78 square miles. Monaco, Monte Carlo, Monaco, they're basically the same, making it the 2nd smallest country in the world after the Vatican. Its population was about 38,400 based on the last census done in 2016. With 19,009 inhabitants per square kilometer, it is the most densely populated sovereign state in the world. That's Monaco. There it is, just a tiny wee little city. Its own microstate where the rich don't pay taxes. You just have to become a resident there. And well, I couldn't afford to live in Monaco, but this is one of the reasons why I chose a South American country to become a permanent resident there, because eventually I'm going to have to leave because the tax burden here in Canada is just going to be outrageous, especially with everything bankrupt. So this is a clip that was done by Piers Morgan on Monte Carlo back in 2011, so about 8 years ago, a while ago now. But it gives you a better perspective rather than just taking my word for it, that some people are aware of Monte Carlo and these tax havens for the rich. So I'm just going to play this little clip here for you and let you take a listen for yourself.
Right, I want you to glance at your watches, because I'm doing this in real time. Just a few seconds ago, we entered Monaco. There's the world-famous harbour with all the expensive yachts. The Monte Carlo Casino and the Hotel de Paris, where Frank Sinatra used to lock swords with Errol Flynn. All around it lies France. But in just a few seconds, that's it. That was Monaco. It was literally as small as London's Hyde Park. But Monaco's always punched above its size. The last 50 years, it's been the most glamorous, the most star-studded, and the richest place on earth. Monaco may be minuscule, but thanks to the Grand Prix, Grace Kelly, and the superstars who flock here, it's got a big reputation that's transformed it into a land where money is king. How much is this going to cost me?
€1,100,000.
So that view is worth about £30 million.
Yes.
If I've got £500 million to spend, you're the man.
Absolutely.
The place is crawling with millionaires, more in fact per square metre than anywhere else on the planet.
There's probably 2,000 millionaires.
And how many billionaires?
50.
So there you heard for yourself. That's Monaco. I'm not going to play the whole video, obviously, but I will have the description in the link below. Yeah, it's amazing how the world really works. Now, this is a documentary that was done by VPro here several years ago, 2013. This is the tax-free tour. And if you really want to understand how this game is played between multinational corporations, offshore corporations, offshore financial centers, shadow banking, how the rich pay no taxes, and why you shouldn't as well, or how you can set up your business so that you can mitigate and avoid paying taxes, which is smart, and of course you should do it. I highly recommend you watch this video. It's really good. So I'm just going to play this here, and we'll have a listen. There's a couple of clips I'm going to play, but this is the first one. It's really neat how this works. So let's just watch this here.
How does Apple succeed in only paying 1.9% tax on its profits generated outside the US? If foreign profits were to flow back to Apple's headquarters, the company would have to pay 35% corporate income tax. So Apple prefers to direct the foreign profits to a subsidiary in Ireland, where corporate income tax is much lower, 12.5%. But before that, profits are first looped through the Netherlands, where intellectual property is subject to little or no tax. The reduced profits then pass through another Irish subsidiary and on to the British Virgin Islands, where corporate income tax is nil. Apple is considered a pioneer on this tax route, which is commonly known as double Irish with a Dutch sandwich.
Let's see who uses this tax haven system. I mean, you've got to see the tax haven offshore financial system as being part and parcel of the mainstream economic system. I mean, there's a pretty much a complete integration between one and the other. So the money is flowing around. It's not complicated. I mean, there are these options out there, and you use them, you explore them, you see what you can do, and what you're looking at is a map which is, it's not a uniform financial economic world out there, especially when it comes to tax and where you can place your money and how it's taxed. There are different rates all over the world. So you take advantage of the different rates. I mean, it's kind of fairly obvious, really.
So that was a video graphic showing how Apple avoids paying taxes and how these transactions are bounced through various countries. In this next clip that I want to play, this is really good. This talks about Starbucks, and even when you purchase a coffee, how the transactions get bounced around. This is a really great documentary for those interested in wanting to know how the rich avoid at all costs of paying taxes. And the key is you need a business. You just need a business registered offshore. So imagine the amount of taxes that you pay every year in income tax, as well as all these other various forms of licenses and taxes, how much extra money you would have if you could avoid paying that. And the rich know this, and this is the game they play. So I'm going to play this last clip of the tax-free tour, and then we can discuss a little bit after that.
What you've had is the rise of tax competition. So, the UK cuts its tax rate in February to 20%. Canada cut their corporate tax rate to 15%. European countries will then respond. You basically have a race to the bottom. The tax competition has grown up, I think, as a response to this neoconservative argument that we will all be better off and grow faster with tax cuts. For the 30 years we've had this giant experiment of tax cuts. Well, what have we seen? We haven't seen faster growth. We haven't seen more responsible behavior from the banks. We've seen more money going out of the countries because it's very hard to compete with zero. And zero is what you get in a haven.
It's not easy to measure what the actual benefits are for the tax haven itself, but for the multinational, everything revolves around reporting as little profit as possible. This can be done by transferring your software patents or intellectual property to a Dutch mailbox company. Then you arrange for your subsidiary abroad to pay royalties on it. This way you reduce the profits of the parent company. And the surprising thing is, only a very small amount of those royalty flows are subject to taxes. How much? You make secret arrangements about that with the tax authorities. Apple does it, Pfizer does it. The construction even works for a nice cup of Frappuccino.
Wat bijvoorbeeld Starbucks doet, dat is het merk Starbucks. Maar iedere koffiesoort die ze hebben, bijvoorbeeld Frappuccino of iedere soort, dat is ook weer wetten gedeponeerd. Die merken die hangen uiteindelijk onder Amerika, maar die zitten al met de sublicenties, zijn ondergebracht in Nederland. Dus op het moment, iedere keer dat er bijvoorbeeld in Duitsland of in Frankrijk of willekeurig land een Starbucks-vestiging wordt geopend, maar iedere keer als mensen bijvoorbeeld een cappuccino bestellen of wat dan ook, is er iedere keer weer, moet je een deeltje merkrecht gaan betalen. Dat vloeit dan weer naar Nederland. En dat soort dingen zijn soms in die jaarstukken heel moeilijk te zien. Toch, Starbucks blijft een fascinerend voorbeeld, omdat het is een bedrijf dat zich natuurlijk ook op een website enorm profileert. De koffie bijvoorbeeld is vaak fairtrade, daar pochen ze mee. Als je naar een website gaat, dan zie je ook dat ze gebouwen proberen te ontwikkelen die helemaal energie-neutraal zijn. Dus een hele manier, een hele PR, een hele marketing. Dat is een bedrijf van, jong, wij zijn begaan met de mensheid, maatschappelijk verantwoord ondernemen. En dan komt zo'n bedrijf opeens fel onder in de publiciteit te liggen in Engeland, omdat ze blijkt dat ze nauwelijks belasting betalen. Ja, dat is natuurlijk voor zo'n bedrijf is dat killing.
I don't want to withhold from you the images of an English parliamentary committee on their quest for lost corporate income tax. British corporate income tax, that is. A unique opportunity to hear what those responsible have to say.
The purpose of our session this afternoon is to try and understand why you don't pay the corporation tax, really. That's the issue that we're focusing on this afternoon. So can I start with Starbucks, Mr. Alstead? My understanding is that you filed in Companies House losses for most of the years that you've been running coffee houses in the UK. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
The other thing that is odd to me is that if you've made losses in the UK over 15 years, what on earth are you doing business here?
We know that we must be in the UK to be a successful global company.
But you're losing money here. It just doesn't ring true, Mr. Alstead.
No.
That's what frustrates taxpayers in the UK. Doesn't ring true. You've got to give us a better explanation.
Mr. Alstead, my heart's begun to bleed for you. I'm going to have to rush out down Victoria Street and have a double caramel macchiato because you're in such a bad way. I mean, for 14 years of trading in this country, and you've paid what? 1.6 million in corporation tax. I mean, you're either running the business very badly or there's some fiddle going on.
I think...
So in that example, you kind of give a demonstration of how these corporate giants, these multinational corporations, present a specific marketing image and brand of who they are. If they use trademarks, they use all these intellectual property rights, and they're constantly depleting and depleting so that they don't have to pay taxes. Have you ever asked yourself, how can these Silicon Valley giants like Twitter and Facebook, and some of these companies, Uber was one of them for the longest time, that has no profit. They're worth billions and billions of dollars, yet they have no profit. Year after year, they're not making any money. Well, it's because of this. They've gamed and rigged the system so bad that they bounce their transactions and constantly deplete their profits so it looks like they have nothing while they siphon the economy dry. In my personal opinion, I believe that the middle class in the next 10 to 15 years will be completely eviscerated. It'll be gone. We're moving to a two-tiered society. I believe in this documentary also it shows some of these futuristic, the 2020 or 2030 agenda, where these big corporations have already purchased land in Africa, Asia, South America, where they plan to build super cities for themselves. This isn't a conspiracy, like this is actually happening because the middle class will be gone. It's quite interesting. On another note, this was from Friday, and if you've been watching any of my last few videos since the beginning of summer, maybe even late spring, I said the stock market higher. Stock market is going to go higher. Now we just reached all new time highs in the Dow or the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, I believe it was on Friday. And even though the economy slows to 2.1%, stocks are at all-time highs. Stocks are at all-time highs. It's amazing. Yet a loss of momentum among businesses, especially exporters and manufacturers, suggests the economy could expand more slowly in the second half of the year. Oh, and it's going to get worse. The actual real economy is going to get worse. It doesn't matter if stocks go higher. Stock market going higher is not a gauge of how healthy your economy is. It's how much money is in your pocket and how well you're doing as a citizen of the economy, the real economy. The Federal Reserve is prepared to cut already low interest rates as soon as next week, which is this coming Wednesday, to give the economy a mostly symbolic boost. It's not a mostly symbolic boost, they have to. The economy is basically going down. So they're going to cut rates. And eventually they're going to print more money, and they're going to, another 12 to 24 months, they'll probably start purchasing stocks directly in the market, similar as they are doing in Japan, as I discussed in one of my other videos. Now, in this next article is from Bloomberg. The date is July 13th, 2019, so just a couple of weeks back. And the black hole engulfing the world's bond markets. This is talking about negative yielding bonds. And as I talked about and discussed in some of my previous videos, now is probably a good time to get into precious metals, Bitcoin, assets that are within your control and not subject to negative yielding returns or just outright confiscation. A lot of these pension funds are going to be forced to buy this negative yielding garbage. It's quite amazing. I believe it's over $13 trillion now. So yeah, this is what Bloomberg had to say. Negative yielding debt topped $13 trillion in June. So remember, there's $13 trillion US dollars worth that is producing a negative yield. That means if you put in $100 into a bond, after a prescribed amount of time, say 10 years, you're only going to get back $90. That doesn't even account for inflation. So why are you going to purchase something that's going to make you poor? Well, because you're forced to. They just don't tell you that. Your pension funds are forced to. They can't sit in cash. It's a violation of the rules. So they will be forced to purchase negative yielding debt. It's crazy. So 13 trillion in June, negative yielding debt, have doubled since December. So this has doubled since September. That's incredible. So you're talking about $6.5 trillion just 6-7 months ago, and now makes up around 25% of global debt. In Germany, 85% of the government bond market is underwater. That means investors effectively pay the German government 0.2% for the privilege of buying its benchmark bonds. The government keeps only €2 for every 1,000 euros borrowed over a period of 10 years. So the thing to remember here is that you're constantly getting poor, like with all these schemes and what's happening in the global economy. If you're trusting your pension fund, whether it's public or private, Social Security, you really need to prepare yourself now. Bitcoin right now, I think it's about 95. Yeah, it's hovering around the $9,500 US market. It has retraced as I suspected it would. I was a month early. I was anticipating it to roll over into June and ended up rolling over this month in July. I'm still sticking by my stance that it should retrace as we head through the rest of this quarter. And by fourth quarter, wherever that bottom is, I don't know. I would love to see it go back to 3,500. I'll be able to buy cheap Bitcoin again. I don't think it's going to go that low. And then it'll probably go higher. Don't fear the regulators. Don't fear all the FUD. Protect yourself. Do your own research. Put down your Facebook. Put down your Twitter. Put down all this noise of consumerism and start educating yourself to protect yourself in the future. So thanks for joining me. Hopefully this wasn't too long, and I'll be back probably end of August for one more video, unless something really spectacular catches my eye and I think I need to do one. So until then, enjoy the rest of the summer. Take care.